Super excited to be joined by Colgate men's lacrosse head coach, Coach Matt Karweck. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time this morning. We really appreciate you for hopping on.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you for jumping on. And before we get to your big matchup this weekend against Syracuse, I want to talk about your season as a whole because you've had a really exciting season. You've been ranked, and the first thing I look at when I look at your schedule, you're barely home. A lot of road trips to start the year. How does that kind of affect your team and maybe make your team a little bit stronger because you're always kind of battling a road environment?
Yeah, I think that we had a couple of those home games that were scheduled, but being as you guys know, being in New York, the rain and then the ice it will get you sometimes. But one of the things for us is we said it beforehand. I say it to my team, and USA Lacrosse had an article on it, which is just tell us where to be and what time to be there. And that mentality for our guys has always been powerful. And this year in particular, having, with those two things that had happened, the two home games that became away, it became even that much more relevant, right? And so, but I think that mentality alone has allowed us to your point, step into any arena and say, listen, at the end of the day, these lines are the exact same distance and the fans are different and the opponent's different, but we got to go out there and do what we do every single day in practice and hopefully get the result.
Coach, I just want to say I love your office. I love the background with the lacrosse fields in the
Like
back.
the Towardens right there too, man.
Hey,
Don't worry
the
about that
trophy.
puppy over
Oh, that looks nice.
there. Good.
Crazy back and forth game against Bucknell. Um,
Hmm.
Started down 8-3, big comeback, a big run to take the lead. And then it was a physical battle. What kind of takeaways can you take away from that game going up against Syracuse?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think that game for us was, probably a little bit of a I don't say wake up call because we kind of knew where we're at. But one of the things that happens is that you're going to get everybody's best game. When you're playing the way we're playing and you're ranked and all that stuff, we're going to get everybody's best game. And so that was exciting. When we took the lead in that game, I thought we were going to be able to kind of do what we've always done against teams, which is when we take that lead late in the game or otherwise, it ends up kind of separating. But we just didn't get the stops we needed. Where we kept scoring, and that's a really good sign for a team. We've been putting up, pretty absurd numbers the last 6 games, against all styles of defenses, and that's a really good thing for us. So the takeaways to your question, Griffin, is, you know, we can score and we can shore up our defense. Our defense has always been our strong suit, frankly, here for the last 2 years. And so, for them to be able to say, all right, let's go, and offensive guys, you continue to do what you're doing. I feel like we're in great shape. Those kind of things you can shore up pretty quickly.
And coach, you mentioned it. You're bringing teams are bringing their A game against you, but you guys have been bringing your A game all season long. Big
Yeah.
wins against Penn State and Virginia. How do those early ranked matchups and ranked victories really help your team to start the
Well, we
season?
didn't win those 2 games. So
Yeah,
we lost those two
yeah.
games.
Outside of those games, yeah.
Right, yeah. And so one of the things that happened with those 2 games that to your point gave you that sense. And if you look at the way I've scheduled since I've been at Colgate, we're going to schedule, have a great schedule. We're going to get the best competition we can get. We have a couple weeks, obviously, each year to kind of establish, the type of opponents you want to play. What those 2 games gave us was, our we want to see what it looks like, frankly, to not take the shortcuts in some of the areas. Those are things that that Virginia and Penn State gave us, is that, they showed us a couple of these areas where, you have to be physical dodgers. You have to, get great shots. You have to earn, kind of the right to win those games. And each of those games, I felt like we were in it, at some point that this could turn very quickly, and it just didn't, right? And so if you watch the Virginia game, we were 13-9, we're scoring in transition, we're doing the things that we want to do, and then kind of back to back to back mistakes kind of put us out of that game. And so that was a little bit of a bummer, but our guys responded. And that was the thing that I was curious about, whether or not they were going to respond to that thing. And then we went out and went on a 5 game win streak and put up, some absurd numbers and beat Harvard and beat some of these other teams that were really good. For us, we were super excited about watching that happen. And so that's what that gave us, is that confidence to play with anybody.
You have a very well-rounded trio at the top with the Connor brothers and then Jack Turner, When your offense is clicking, what are the signs of that on the field?
Yeah, I think that when those guys are constantly attacking is when you start to see, if you watch the game tomorrow and they start putting their shoulder in their defenseman's chest, you're going to know that the gate is coming. I think that's the biggest thing for us. And, we practice physically, we practice intensely. We're going to fight for ground balls. We're going to 10-man ride. We're going to double pull the face-offs. I mean, all the stuff that you love as a player, and to stay aggressive. And so, to answer your question, yeah, Rory and Liam Connor and Jack Turner, I think are some of the best attackmen in the country, and we just haven't been able to show that quite yet where we want to, and it's a good opportunity for tomorrow.
You got a freshman that I want to talk about. He's got 11 goals this year, Casey Quinson.
Yeah.
Freshman year, and I mean, he looks like he's a veteran already. What's allowed him to adjust so well to the D1 level?
Yeah, it's a great recognition, man. Not a lot of people talk about it, so I appreciate that insight right there, Andrew. But the biggest thing for us is Case is coming out of midfield, and he's usually an attackman to your point, and so but he's coming out of midfield, he's getting everybody's short sticks, and so in some ways it's kind of comical because he could be a guy that could be out there on attack tomorrow, but he's getting a short stick matchup and absolutely make people pay for it. So but one of the things about him is you watch his style. He's doing a great job, cutting, dodging. He kind of has so many of these different tools that we're proud to watch him kind of continue to develop. And he's going to his right hand, his left hand. You kind of have to stop him in lots of ways. And if you're a team that says we're not going to slide to Casey, then you're in big trouble.
You mentioned the 10-man ride, obviously, one of the biggest things that teams look to or against you when preparing for them. What is it about the 10-man ride that you love, and why do you continue to stick with it? And how does it make teams harder to prepare for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, listen, if you don't run your own 10 man, then you spend all week, running against it, and we spend all year running it, so it's never going to be an actual version, right, of it. Teams do a good job, like let's even Bucknell last week, who has seen it before, did a good job against it, frankly, and we got a couple of turnbacks, but and one of the things for us is it's an establishment to answer your question fully. It's an establishment of the way that we want to attack. I've coached here now for this is my seventh season, and in the first couple of years, it was the shot clock era, came into play, and you're kind of like, all right, how do you manage this shot clock, and do you hold the ball? And if you look at statistics, most people score at the end of clocks, and blah blah blah, all this other stuff that people will you get taken down the wrong path, frankly, man. And so when you can play organically to yourself and attack the moment, right? Then what you see is you get guys that practice that way. You recruit players that want to play that way. And then there's a freedom of that, to answer your question fully. There's a freedom of play there that allows you to read body language and say, all right, how can we put the most pressure on this team? And will they break it? Sure. Could they score on it? Sure. But at the end of the day, you're going to get constant heat there, and that can weigh on a lot of teams. And that's been what's been happening this year in those last 5 games that we won. That weighed on them pretty heavily, and we were one of the best riding teams in the country.
So, you don't have concern because Syracuse, they got some guys, Billy Dwan, who can score from, far out.
Sure.
Even with that ride, you don't think that, that really raises any concerns for you?
No, I think he can shoot and score. I think anybody can shoot and score. I think that's part of the challenge, right? Is that like if he's got his hands free and he's going to shoot and put one in the back of the net, that's good, great. That's a weird thing to say because you're like, wait, don't you want to make stops, right? But for us, it's a mentality. It really is, and so we're going to put pressure on you. You may make a couple plays, just like on defense. They're offensively, their offense is going to make a couple plays. In the ride, they're going to in our ride, they're going to make a couple plays. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, typically the aggressor wins in sports, and that's the way I think about it. You watch March Madness right now. Anybody who's not being who they are in March Madness is like, you're like, what are they doing? They should be shooting that more or pressing transition more otherwise, right? It's like, as a fan of some of the teams, you're like, you want them to be who they are because that's how they got to where they got to. And so for us, yeah, Syracuse might make a couple plays on it, but we also are going to make a couple plays on it. And so that's the give and take that you get with the 10-man ride and pressure.
It's clearly been working. 12, causing 12 turnovers a game, second best in the country. One place where you've been struggling a little bit has been
Yeah.
the face-offs. Matching up with John Mullen, one of the best in the country. What's your message to the team ahead of that battle?
Yeah, we don't change, man. So if you think about face-offs, did you guys both play lacrosse?
Mm-mm,
I
we did
did
not.
not.
So one of the things about face-offs, you get really, it's a skewed statistic, and you got to be careful about that when you're looking at that one. And you got to be careful about turnovers as well, because the type of turnovers are interesting, right? So are they caused turnovers, or are they just throwing the ball out of bounds, for example, whether it's your own turnovers or the opponent's turnovers. So I think those two things you got to be careful about talking about. But face-off is this. So think about this. There's a half a second, if you watch the game, there's a half a second where the whistle blows and then it's between two guys, right? We double pull the face-offs. I mean, we put our meanest, animals on the wings, right? And if that turns into a ground ball, we typically have the advantage. Makes sense
Mm.
to you? So they
Yeah.
might win the draw. Like to your point, Mullen's good, no doubt. But our guys are really good too. If you watch last year's game, we won that ball a good bit. So the challenge for us is stay aggressive on the ball, fight for that thing. And if Mullen or one of their wing guys comes up with it, great. Who cares? They may not end up with it. And if they do, great. It is what it is. You can play defense. And I think so, it's an interesting statistic. You got to be careful about talking about it. But it is, for example, look at the Harvard game for Syracuse. Look
Mhm.
at the statistics in the faceoffs.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'll tell
So
you right there.
crazy.
listen, you got to guard, you
Yep.
got to play well defensively, and you have to score goals. Like that's what it is in sports. The other
Yep.
things like they can really enhance it. To your guys' question, so for me, for our guys, we tell them exactly what I said to you, which is stay aggressive, get that ball, fight for it. You know what I'm saying? Because after that half a second, it's an absolute fight, and that's what I love about it.
That Harvard game for Syracuse was definitely one where it's got to go a little bit further than the box score. That face-off thing. That's still kind of startles me when I look at that, and I can't believe Syracuse couldn't get that win. But credit to Harvard, they were a really good side. Syracuse, they got a big win against Johns Hopkins, and they had a week off, and they came back and against Manhattan, they scored 18 goals. This attack kind of seems like they're really finding their rhythm. Is there someone on the attack that you're kind of a little bit more concerned about compared to someone else, or is it really the whole league?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. If you think about a lot of teams play defense one on one and then slide if they need to, for example, right? If you watch us play, and if you guys watch the game tomorrow specifically, you're going to see that we are a help style defense, meaning you got to beat our whole defense in order to do it. So there are players, to your point, that are going to make some plays, and they got good players, just like we do. And so the challenge, I think, when you try to go like one-on-one battle that other teams do, you get this, you know, um, ego style of one-on-one stuff. If you play team offense and play team defense and team riding and team clearing the way that we talk about it, you get a little bit of a difference. So you don't think about it quite like you said. You think about it as in like, what is your team going to do overall? What shots are you willing to give up? You know what I mean? That your goalie can make some saves on. That to me is more important than the matchup stuff. I think they got good players. They got great players. That across the country, there's so many really, really good players out. It's much different than it was, 20 years ago, where that you weren't sure. Now you've seen these guys play for lots of years. They're pretty, they're really good. They've scored a lot of goals. To your point, and so how do you play team defense that's going to allow you to give up the shots you want to give up, and then on the other side to get the shots you want to get to put pressure on that goalie?
You've been without your captain Aiden Vernon on defense pretty much the whole season. What are you
Yeah.
missing with Aiden, and how have other guys stepped up in his absence?
Yeah, that's a great recognition. He was out. He went out in the first, two couple minutes of his first game back, and he had been out for a little while, and then he tore his ACL. So he's going to be done for the season, which is devastating. But Aiden, I tell you what, when you're at practice, he's in right now. He just got done with surgery, but he's in a chair, in practice and his knees up, that kind of stuff. But you hear his voice, and so that's what you get right now from Aiden, and so which has always been one of his strengths. He's obviously a great player too, but yeah, you've seen guys that have to step up in a lot of ways, right? It's not even like a choice at that point. So we train all of our guys to be able to do all things. And because we're double pulling the face-offs, because we're 10-man riding, we need to be able to put our guys in position to play all spaces. And so our LSMs and our defensemen, all those long sticks, they get a chance to play both directions. And so who stepped up? I think the guy like, John Carabine, Jack Carabine, he goes by, but he does a really good job, putting himself in position to get some of those takeaways, to get ground balls. He's been the Patriot League Player of the Week a bunch of times. Max Yates has done a good job. He's another captain of ours. But if you really look at our defense, the Fitzsimmons kid, Quinn Fitzsimmons, who's in the back, doesn't get a lot of the pub and the turnovers and stuff like that. But he's the voice of direction back there, and that's been really powerful for us.
And then your two leading point getters, the Connor brothers. What's made them such a dynamic duo to start this year out?
Do you have brothers?
No, I don't.
I don't
Wish I had
either.
a brother sometimes.
So it's like having, for me, watching them at practice and like, you see something where a guy's like this, kind of one of those, and you're like,
Yep.
gonna backdoor cut that guy right there. And sure enough, boom, backdoor cut, throws it right to his stick, and then they like run behind the net and like high five or something like real sneaky good. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's what you get with that kind of combo. They've been doing that in the backyard their whole lives. And so watching them do it on field together is like, gives me chills, man. I wish I was close enough with my brother. We were 7 years apart, but if we weren't, we would have been doing that same thing. And so that's what you get when you get him, and they're like, one of the things you love about the Connor brothers is they're competitors. They're just absolute competitors. At practice every day, like they want to win drills. And when you have your senior captain, and a brothers and starting attackman that want to win drills all the time, I tell you what, it raises that level.
Definitely. And then last one for you before we let you go. I just want to talk about this matchup in general.
Yeah.
Syracuse Colgate, in-state rivalry, I guess you
Yeah.
could put it that way. How much does it mean to your group to head up to the Dome and play Gary Gates' side?
Yeah, heck yeah. Listen, man, a couple things that you got to know about Gary Gate. One is I have unbelievable respect for him. He used to come out to my high school when I was a young pup at Penn Yan, and they would. My brother and I were just talking about it actually on the phone right before this podcast. But he would come to our high school and teach the youth players and high school players, stuff like that, just a little bit of like what he knows and about the game and those kind of things. And so I have crazy fond memories of the Gate brothers doing that, and the following them, the Paulos used to come out and do that, and so I have such great respect for Syracuse, being from upstate New York myself. Certainly, it's meaningful to me to be in that dome again. I've played there as a player when I was at Notre Dame, and coached there when I was at ND. Obviously, coached here. We beat them 6 years ago. 7 years ago, my very first game, as a head coach here at Colgate, we won that game. And that was against John Desko, who's, again, one of my mentors and idols. And so the way I think about it is this, this is an upstate rivalry game. And we're super excited about it. There's going to be no lack of energy in that space. I got a lot of people from home coming, those kind of things make me really, kind of nostalgic and proud. But letting our guys understand the level of intensity that this game is going to carry is not something that we have to like drum up, right? For example, it's two upstate teams, two top 20 teams, and they're top, 5 or whatever it is. That's awesome. That's what you want in upstate New York, and that's what you want for this game. And so to answer your question fully, we're juiced. I think upstate New York's going to be juiced, and so we'll see if the fireworks go one way or the other. And I'm blessed to be able to coach against Coach Gate, and his staff, and I think they do a great job, and I always have, and so I'm excited about the competition. I'm excited about the rivalry. I'm also excited about really our guys going in there and proving that they belong in the conversation. So.
Definitely. I know a lot of people are going to be watching basketball this weekend, but we're trying to tell people that
That's okay.
This is a can't miss one, because we think it's going to be a thrilling one in the Dome between you guys and Syracuse. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, thanks a lot, man. Do a great job. I appreciate this podcast, and good luck with you guys and your podcast, man, as you're building your brand and doing your thing. And, maybe I could throw a Colgate flag up behind there one day. It'd be good. I'm just joking with you. But no, yeah, you did a great job. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and keep it up, man. You guys are doing a great job. So.